Adventure Time is without a doubt one of our generation's greatest cartoons. It's not afraid to explore uncomfortable ideas and teach us things we didn't think we needed to know about. Amidst the lighthearted chaos, it finds a way to inspire us and help us learn about ourselves. From love and friendship to heartbreak and betrayal, Adventure Time has no shortage of any of this. This series showed an entire generation what it means to grow up, mess up, and then try again anyway. While rewatching the series, I found myself once again being taught about life. This show about swords and a talking dog did more than just entertain. It taught us how to trust, how to let go of the past, and what it feels like to lose a loved one. This is Adventure Time and how it shaped an entire generation. Act 1. No One Can Hear You. There's an episode that just feels like a bad dream. It feels like one we had as a kid but never forgot. It plays like a horror movie. Finn wakes up in a hospital bed, his legs are broken, the candy kingdom is empty, and Jake is acting all strange. He's built a trash hut and insists everyone is just hiding for a surprise birthday party. But it's been 6 months. Everyone is gone, stuck to the walls, forgotten. And the only person Finn should be able to count on, his brother, his best friend, is lost in denial. This isn't really about monsters or missing people. It's about what happens when someone you love doesn't notice you're hurting. It's about the silence that comes with being forgotten. When Jake tells Finn to stop asking questions, when he avoids the truth to protect himself, it mirrors something deeper. It's a fear that sits with a lot of us. The idea that maybe, even with people around, you can still be invisible. And for Finn, it was even harder when you remember where he came from emotionally. He's just 12 years old, not developed, and emotionally immature. His previous encounters put him in a situation where he had to move on, but he couldn't, not yet. No One Can Hear You is Finn's emotional isolation turned literal. He's been left behind, and now even Jake, his constant, is too lost in his own mind to save him. This represents something deeper. A few episodes prior, when Princess Bubblegum becomes younger, she gives Finn a chance, and it's beautiful, like a normal teenage romance. However, the moment she is returned to normal, she looks right past him. A kid has just had his heart broken by someone he loved unconditionally, has to deal with everyone around him disappearing, and the one person he can count on, Jake, is not there to help him out. This episode represents being able to let go of the past, or the inability some of us have to do so. Act 2, The Hall of Egress. And then there's The Hall of Egress, maybe one of the most quietly brilliant episodes in the entire series. We find ourselves not really understanding what's going on. Even as the episode comes to an end, we don't really get it. But here's a summary of the episode, and I'll unpack what I really think is going on here. Finn stumbles into a maze that can't be mapped. Every path leads him back. Every solution leads to failure. It's frustrating to watch, and that's the point. Eventually, he figures out that the only way out is to walk forward, blindfolded, eyes closed, no logic, no control, just faith. And when he opens his eyes too soon, he's thrown back to the start, again and again and again. After a bit, he stumbles into Jake. Excited to be out of the dungeon, he opens his eyes, only to find himself back where he started. So, he just stops opening them altogether. He lives like that, blind for weeks, because he's learned that rushing or trying to outsmart the system only resets everything. This one is a metaphor stacked on a metaphor. It's about growing up, it's about surrender, about how some doors only open when we stop forcing them to. It's also about how personal our struggles can be. To everyone else, the cave is just a patch of grass. Jake can't even see it. Only Finn knows what's happening. Only Finn can walk that path. This is the same boy who once punched every problem in the face, and now he's learning to be still, to trust something he can't see, to wait until something feels different. Act 3, I Remember You. And now, we should look at the episode I Remember You. It's a critical piece to understanding just how impactful this show has been to many of us. This episode is just about two characters trying to understand a version of each other that they no longer recognize. This episode starts off in the Ice Kingdom, with the Ice King, and he's wearing a Marceline wig, and Gunther is of course singing a song. He then asks what Marceline is up to, and flies over to find her strumming her axe bass. After a small confrontation, she lets him stay. She doesn't fight him, she doesn't push him away, because we start to understand that there's history here. Not just shared episodes, but something deeper. The Ice King isn't just some annoying villain who keeps kidnapping princesses. He was someone. He was Simon, and he meant something to Marceline. He took care of her when the world ended. He loved her. And now, through the influence of the Ice King crown, he doesn't even remember. This episode doesn't just reveal backstory. It reveals pain in a real and raw form. Between the both of them, Marceline is trying to reach the version of Simon that's still buried under the madness. But the Ice King, Simon, is still just too lost inside himself. He knows something's off, but he can't quite tell what that is. Her attempts are sincere. She starts singing from Simon's old notes.
Marceline, is it just You and me in the wreckage of the world.
You can feel her trying not to break, trying to hold it together while singing the words that once meant everything to both of them. But Simon, he's not there anymore. Just the Ice King, smiling, bobbing his head to a song he doesn't even remember writing. And yet the emotion still cuts through, because something in him feels it, even if he doesn't know what it is, and that's why it hurts so much. That's what makes this moment so important. When we were kids, this probably didn't seem like much, but it's the kind of moment that lingers with us, even when we don't always think about it. But now that we're older and we start to understand it, it really does something. This episode isn't just about the Ice King losing his mind. It's about those moments where we miss someone even though they're standing right in front of us. Now, after so much time has passed since we first watched this episode, we know what it's like to lose people. Not because of distance, but because they changed. Or maybe we did. I Remember You doesn't offer a solution. It doesn't tie things up neatly. It just exists. It feels the same as a song that takes you back to your childhood, even though you can't really put your finger on why. This episode is the last piece to understanding exactly how much impact Adventure Time has had on our generation, how it paved the way for new cartoons, and how it changed us all for the better. Act 4, The Way to Growing Up. By the time you finish Adventure Time, it doesn't feel like the same show you started with. We came in for magic dogs and silly songs. We stayed for quiet heartbreaks and unspoken traumas. The world got bigger, the characters got older, and we grew up right alongside them. Finn isn't just a hero anymore. He's complicated, messy, hurt. He falls in and out of love, he gets angry, he tries to fix people who don't want to be fixed. And at one point, he even loses his arm. This loss is symbolic, as a way of saying he's changed, and he won't go back to the way he was. And neither will we. This is part of what makes Adventure Time so timeless. It doesn't just capture the spirit of adulthood, it honors the transition into it. It respects the awkwardness, the questions, the grief that comes with growing older. Episodes like Thank You, Simon and Marcy, and Islands aren't filler, they're poetry. They're pieces of a larger mosaic that asks, what does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to love someone? And of course, what does it mean to lose them? You don't get answers, you get stories. And honestly, that's better. Character deep dive. Existentialism and the Lich. Every generation has its monsters. In Adventure Time, the biggest one wasn't just evil, it was nothingness. The Lich represents a kind of existential fear that most kids' shows wouldn't even touch. He doesn't want to rule the world, he wants to end it. His presence strips away the bark and exposes a darker undercurrent. What if none of this means anything? And yet, the show doesn't just use the Lich to scare you, it uses him to reveal resilience. Finn's confrontations with the Lich are moments where optimism meets nihilism head on, and time after time, the show quietly affirms, maybe things are broken, maybe nothing lasts, but we keep going anyway. And what does this mean for us? Well, it's powerful. Finn is a metaphor for what happens when we face the indifference of the universe. And all of us, at some point in our life, are gonna have to face the music and ask ourselves what's really going on here. The Lich isn't just a monster, he's indifference, he's entropy, and he's an inevitable fact that we all have to learn to deal with. And now we need to ask what the Lich actually is. Well, the Lich, as described by the show, he is an ancient cosmic being who is the manifestation of the inevitable death of all things. His essence was deposited on Earth millions of years before the start of the show via a cataclysmic comet, but came into physical being near the end of the Mushroom War from a huge mutagenic bomb. And how does he show existentialism and nihilism so well? He embodies the core ideas of these two philosophies. Nothingness. He's not driven by power or fame, he wants nothingness. You ever notice how whenever he appears, the tone of the show shifts? No colors, no whimsy, just pure and absolute entropy and chaos. His whispers are not just taunts, they are truths. It is the absolute ideas of philosophy at its rawest.
Fall. You are alone, child. There is only darkness for you, and only death for your people.
Nothing you do matters, everyone will vanish, you are alone. That is existentialism, that is the Lich. Marceline and the Art of Grief. One of Adventure Time's most emotionally complex characters is Marceline, a vampire who is also eternally young. She embodies what it means to live with your past, especially when your past refuses to let go of you. She is a being who has lived through the Great Mushroom War, watched people she loved fade into nothingness, and survived in a world that doesn't remember remember the version of her that existed before the trauma. Her age isn't a superpower, it is without a doubt a burden. Marceline's character is layered with unspoken pain. Her relationship with her father, Hudson Aberdare, is someone who emotionally neglected her. In Marcy and Hudson, we see a side of parental trauma that's subtle but devastating. Hudson doesn't understand Marceline. Not really. He tries to connect through grand gestures, through dominance, through old world logic. But what Marceline really wants is something much simpler: to be seen. She wants to be understood more than anything. The episode doesn't offer some grand reconciliation, it gives us something more honest. A moment. A brief second of emotional clarity between Marceline and Hudson. They both drop the performance just enough to show that love is there, subtly and unspoken. But the most powerful thread into Marceline's arc is her connection with Simon, the Ice King. Before he became the Ice King, Simon was her guardian during the apocalypse. He protected her and gave her stability in a collapsing world, but the crown that gave Simon his powers slowly consumed him. It turned him into someone else, and Marceline was forced to watch the person who saved her disappear into madness. You see where I'm going here? Once again, the show wants to show us how to let go. This loss isn't tragic, it's ongoing, because Simon doesn't die. He's still there, just emotionally gone. The grief Marceline feels is for someone who still stands in front of her, but can't remember who he is. It's one of the rawest portrayals of degenerative illness, memory loss, or addiction you'll ever find in cartoon. This is where Adventure Time's emotional storytelling really shines. It doesn't resolve things neatly. It doesn't heal every wound. It shows what it's like to live with unresolved pain, to carry love for someone who can no longer return it, to find strength not in closure, but in moving on. Marceline is Adventure Time's portrayal of grief, Princess Bubblegum, and control. Princess Bubblegum is one of the most fascinating contradictions in Adventure Time. She's royalty, but also a scientist, a ruler, but also a deeply flawed person. And her arc isn't about gaining power, it's about slowly learning how to let go of it. Again, letting go of the past. At first glance, she seems like the classic smart girl trope. Logical, calm, composed. The one with the answers, the planner, the builder. But the more time we spend with her, the more we realize something's off. Something's tight. She's not just leading the Candy Kingdom, she's suffocating it with her need to control everything and everyone. She doesn't trust people to take care of themselves. She doesn't trust the world to make sense without her hand on every lever. And underneath it all, she doesn't trust herself to be soft. Bubblegum's relationship with control is one born out of fear. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of vulnerability. And instead of confronting it, she buries it in systems, in diplomacy, in science, in rules. Her bond with Finn is telling. He idolizes her, chases her, misreads her walls as mystery. But Bubblegum, she sees him as a kid, someone pure, someone she can't let in. Because letting anyone in means showing her fractures. And she's spent her entire existence pretending she doesn't have any. And yet with Marceline, the cracks show. In those stolen, quiet moments between the glances, awkward reunions, half-spoken history, we see something softer, something real. Not power, not strategy, just longing. You start to understand that there's a whole chapter between them that the show doesn't spell out. And that's the point. Their story lives in the silence between episodes. Episodes like Varmints and The Thin Yellow Line crack open Bubblegum's armor in ways we hadn't seen before. She's pushed out of her place. Her systems crumble. Her kingdom no longer trusts her. And for the first time, she's not in control. And what does she do? She breaks. And then she bends. And she lets herself admit she was wrong. She talks to Marceline. She apologizes. And she reconnects. We learn that control was never her strength. It was her survival mechanism. And when she finally sets it down, she doesn't fall apart, she heals. Princess Bubblegum is for every person who has ever tried to hold the world together with both hands while quietly falling apart inside. She's for the perfectionists, for the overachievers, the caretakers who don't know how to ask for care in return. Her journey isn't about becoming more powerful, it's about realizing she doesn't have to be. And maybe that's the real kind of strength the show wanted us to see all along. Finn's emotional evolution. One of the most powerful aspects of Adventure Time is also the simplest. We watch Finn grow up, not off screen, not in a time skip, in real time, episode by episode, year by year. When the show begins, Finn is the classic hero archetype. He's brave, loyal, and bursting with energy. He wants to do good. He wants to save people. He wants things to be black and white, right and wrong. But what makes Adventure Time different is that it lets him fail over and over and over again. He gets rejected by Princess Bubblegum, he falls in love with Flame Princess, then ruins it. He tries to be noble and ends up lost. He searches for meaning and ends up finding nothing. Early on, Finn is filled with the kind of emotional certainty only kids have. He loves deeply. He believes everything will work out. He jumps headfirst into everything. So when Bubblegum rejects him, not out of cruelty but maturity, he doesn't understand. He can't, at least not as he is now. He thinks loving someone hard enough should be enough. And that's the first heartbreak. Not just the crush, but the idea that effort alone guarantees love. It's a lesson you don't get from Swords and Quests. It's a lesson that leaves you quiet, and his relationship with the Flame Princess is chaotic. It burns bright, it crashes hard. He tries to love her in a way that's intense and pure, but also manipulative. In trying to understand her, he tests her emotions. He lies, he breaks the rules, and she gets hurt. Instead of sweeping it under a rug, Adventure Time confronts it. Being in love doesn't mean you're ready to be in a relationship. Finn has to face the fact that passion without honesty is selfish. That love is more than feelings. It's responsibility. It's not a clean arc. He doesn't fix it, but he learns slowly. Then comes one of the most emotionally layered episodes in the whole series. Breezy. It's weird, it's symbolic. On the surface, it looks like a quirky story about Finn healing his broken arm, but it's about something deeper, something that's aching. He starts bouncing from girl to girl, desperately seeking connection, but it's hollow, surface level, because underneath all of it, he's grieving for lost love, for innocence, for the version of himself that doesn't exist anymore. The show doesn't spell it out, it just lets you feel it. And when Breezy sings to him, softly, gently, he begins to accept that healing isn't a battle, it's a surrender. That episode does not fix him, but it's the start of something else, letting go of the need to always be okay. So much of Finn's arc is about unlearning what it means to be a man. He starts off thinking strength means fighting monsters, protecting others, never crying. But over time, he learns something much harder. That sometimes you can't save your friends. Sometimes you hurt people you love. That sometimes being strong means sitting with your pain instead of hiding from it. Finn's evolution is slow, messy, and beautiful, and it mirrors the experience of growing up in a world that doesn't teach boys how to feel. Adventure Time never laughs at his tears. It never mocks his heartbreak. It gives him room to feel it all, and teaches us that that's not weakness, that's growth. By the end of the series, Finn isn't the same person. He's calmer, wiser, not because he found all the answers, but because he learned how to ask better questions. He still fights, still cares, still loves, but it's quieter now, more rooted. He's no longer trying to prove he's a hero. He's trying to be himself, and somehow that's enough. Finn's arc is a blueprint for emotional growth. It doesn't end with a trophy, it ends with understanding. He learns to feel, to forgive, to let go. And in doing so, Adventure Time tells an entire generation of boys that we don't have to be unbreakable, we just have to be honest. Lessons in love and friendship. Adventure Time doesn't hand out neat love stories. It doesn't romanticize relationships, and it really wraps anything up in a bow. What it gives us instead is something more honest, more complicated, and ultimately more real. Love in Adventure Time is messy. It's sometimes painful, often confusing, but above all, it's patient. Take Finn, for example. His early crush on Princess Bubblegum is loud, impulsive, and completely one-sided. He confesses, he tries, he gets hurt. And the show doesn't validate his hurt with a reward. Bubblegum doesn't magically fall in love with him, because that's not how love works. It's a lesson about boundaries, about respect, about learning that just because you care about someone doesn't mean they owe you the same. Then there's Flame Princess, a relationship that starts bright and intense, too intense. It teaches Finn and us that love isn't just about fire and passion. It's about understanding, communication, knowing when you're not ready, and that sometimes people grow apart. And it doesn't make them villains, it just makes them human. And of course, there's the slow burning brilliance of Marceline and Bubblegum, a relationship rooted in history, tension, and unspoken feelings. Their journey isn't rushed, it's barely even acknowledged in the beginning, but over time, through conflict and reconnection, through tiny moments like singing together or arguing over old memories, it becomes clear they care, they've always cared, they just didn't know how to say it. Their final reunion isn't fan service, it's emotional closure, a reminder that some relationships take years to unfold, and that doesn't make them any less real. Even the Ice King, arguably one of the most tragic characters in the show, is driven by love, but his love is fractured, twisted by the crown, wrapped gripped by madness. What he's chasing isn't romance, it's connection, a reminder of who he was before he lost himself. And in that light, his constant attempts to bond, even when misguided, become heartbreaking. He isn't a villain, he's a man trying to be loved like he used to be. Outside of romance, the show offers just as much depth in friendship and chosen family. Jake and Lady Rainicorn navigate interspecies parenting with quiet grace. Bimo, with all her eccentricities, reminds us that identity and companionship are as real in a robot as they are in a human. Even characters like Tree Trunks and Mr. Pig, who could have been played entirely for laughs, are given moments of sincerity. Love doesn't always make sense, but it doesn't really have to. Adventure Time tells us that love isn't always about grand gestures or happy endings. It's about presence, about showing up again and again, even when it's hard, even when it's not enough, even when it's quiet. Because sometimes the most meaningful relationships are the ones that don't come with a big speech or a kiss in the rain. Sometimes they come in the form of a song, a shared meal, a memory, or just sticking around. And that's what Adventure Time does best. Love isn't perfect, but it's real. Conclusion: the generation it raised. Adventure Time didn't give us all the answers. It never even claimed to. Instead, it handed us questions tangled in magic swords, wrapped up in candy-colored kingdoms, and sung through auto-tuned voices. It disarms us with its silliness, and while we were laughing at weird rainbow unicorns and stretchy dogs, it quietly reached into the softest part of us and asked, "You feel this too, right?" And we did, even when we didn't yet know how to name it. Before Adventure Time, most animated shows operated on tight arcs, clear morals, and emotional resets. You'd watch an episode, laugh, and move on. But this show broke that mold. It evolved it. It was memorable, its characters aged, its world changed, and it allowed its audience to change alongside it. Trauma wasn't resolved in 20 minutes. Pain didn't vanish with a musical cue. Characters weren't immune to the consequences of their actions. And perhaps, most importantly, healing wasn't portrayed as a linear journey. This show didn't offer instant answers. It gave us space to sit with things, understand that the process of becoming is often messy and uncertain. Adventure Time didn't just leave a mark, it redefined an era of animated storytelling. Its success inspired many other shows to come about in its wake, like Steven Universe and Over the Garden Wall. It also created an era where we could get shows with deeper narratives, like BoJack Horseman and Rick and Morty. But most importantly, Adventure Time had a resonating effect on narrative animation itself. It also doesn't sugarcoat the emotional landscape. Most children's media protects its viewers from harshness, from existential confusion, from grief. But Adventure Time leaned into it. It let its characters break, stumble, make mistakes, and grow in ways that felt startlingly human. It portrayed heartbreak without drama, loss without death, and growth without fanfare. These moments, quiet as they were, stuck with us. They mirrored what many of us were already feeling, particularly the things we didn't know how to say out loud. One of the most impactful aspects of the show was its honesty about love. Whether it was Finn's hopeless devotion to Princess Bubblegum, the passionate but complicated bond with Flame Princess, or the slow burn resolution between Marceline and Bubblegum, Adventure Time made clear that love isn't always clean, mutual, or permanent. Sometimes it's about timing. Sometimes it's about memory. Sometimes it fades. But that doesn't mean it was meaningless. It validated every kind of heartbreak, romantic, platonic, even familial, without simplifying the lessons. It showed that you can care about someone deeply and still need to let them go. That people change, that sometimes the ones who hurt you don't even realize they've done it, but you still get to heal. The show also had an enormous emotional impact in its portrayal of grief and identity. Through characters like Marceline and Simon, it taught us about the ache of losing someone who's still alive. It gave us space to understand that people evolve, and sometimes those changes are irreversible. The Ice King wasn't a classic villain. He was a man drowning inside himself, just trying to be remembered. And Marceline's quiet, enduring sadness reminded us that grief doesn't disappear. It becomes something you carry. Adventure Time also gave us permission to feel deeply without shame. It modeled emotional expression, especially for boys and young men, in a way that was both radical and gentle. Finn cried, he doubted himself, he was heartbroken, and the show never mocked him for it. Instead, it allowed him to grow emotionally, to explore what it meant to be vulnerable, to redefine strength as the willingness to keep caring even when it hurts. It's also worth recognizing how the show made space for marginalized voices. Marceline and Bubblegum's relationship may have taken time to become explicit, but it was always present. The history was laid in silences, glances, and songs, and when it finally came to light, it wasn't treated as a spectacle. It was natural, real, and earned. There's also the show's deep relationship with absurdism. It constantly introduced surreal ideas, cosmic beings, existential threats, and never fully explained them. The Lich didn't want power, he wanted to undo existence. And Finn didn't beat him with logic or brute force. He survived him, again and again. The show reminded us that meaning isn't always given. Sometimes it's something you have to create. And even when nothing makes sense, even when life feels like a joke without a punchline, we keep going anyway, because that in itself is a kind of victory. Perhaps the most important lesson Adventure Time offered: persistence. Not heroism, not perfection, but simply choosing to show up again and again. The show let us grow alongside its characters, watching them break, rebuild, forgive, and rediscover themselves. In doing so, it raised an entire generation, not by prescribing how to live, but by modeling how to feel. It taught us that being lost isn't a flaw, it's a part of the process, that you don't need to have everything figured out to be on the right path, that love is real when it ends, and pain is real even when no one sees it. For the kids who felt different, for the teens who didn't have the language yet, for the adults who are still learning how to let go, Adventure Time wasn't just a cartoon, it was a mirror, a message, a soft place to land in a world that often asks us to harden up or shut down. In the end, the show didn't tell us how to live. It told us it was okay to not know. It told us to feel anyway, and sometimes that's enough. It still is.